And our last panelist is Kim Cherry from DC Public Schools.
Good afternoon. I'm going to talk a little bit about the story of DCPS and where we are. So I currently serve as the Deputy Chief of STEM for our school system, K-12, and we have about 112 schools. We have some schools who share buildings, so we are about 112 schools. So presently, right now, we are the fastest growing urban school district in the country from our NAEP scores. So these are our scores from 2011 to 2015 for ELA fourth grade gains. And for mathematics.
You can sit down now.
So not just our test scores, but our graduation rates are up. So we are 6 points up from where we were in the previous year. Our enrollment is also up. So previously we were on a decline. We had a large sort of insurgence of charter schools. And so right now, the conversation is changing. We were as low as 35,000 students. We are right now over 50,000. And we are doing innovative things. So this past year, or this current year, but past academic year, we sent students abroad. We sent them to Spain. We sent students to China. We sent students to Central America. And when I say we sent students, we paid for luggage. We paid for passports. We paid for airfare. We paid for hotel. We sent students away. So urban students who rarely have an opportunity to leave their neighborhoods, we actually had them leave the country. So we're doing a lot of great things. We still have a lot of work to do. So this is information from our 2015 PARCC scores. This is so this is showing that 2/3 of our students are not college and career ready. This is information from our 2015 data as well. So our goal is to have the majority of our kids achieve level 4 and 5 on both the ELA and math assessments. Please note the N size of our Black and Hispanic students. This is information from 2016. Again, note the N sizes. And slightly different story for mathematics. So we are growing. However, the achievement gap is very large. That is their score. So the story in DCPS is about achievement. So I'm going to go back two slides. If we look at the white students here in DC, they are achieving at very high levels. So a little bit of information about the white students here in Washington, DC. The median income for most of our students, our white students, is between $70,000 and $100,000. So the white students that are here in DC are fairly wealthy. So what I tell folks is that we don't have the average white student. We have very wealthy white students here. On the flip side of that, our Black and Hispanic students are extremely poor. So we have really extreme cases happening in our public schools. And so as I talk about the achievement gap, equity is our story here in DCPS. Our job is to educate everyone. At the district level, my job is to ensure that everyone has equal access to high rigor and quality teaching and learning. And so in that story, Karen asked us to talk about the different research possibilities. And so for me, it's important that we understand what happens in urban school districts. We cannot continue to talk about content absent of what's happening within communities. So the Black Lives Matter movement is huge. We cannot move on in STEM education and STEM learning without including that in the conversation, without including that within the research. We cannot continue without talking about the mass incarceration of Black and Latino boys. So right now in DCPS, this academic year, 2-3 weeks ago, we opened up the only all-male public high school in an urban school setting. It is not charter, it is a public school. We are coming upon great controversy because, as you know, the conversation a lot with equity is about gender. However, for DCPS, we are doing a huge disservice to young Black and Hispanic males. And so when we talk about the mass incarceration of Black and Latino males, it's important for us to recognize that. It is important for us to continue to recognize poverty, and I think we have a lot of research that includes that. And then we cannot, here in DC, and I take that back, I want to say across the country, we cannot continue to have research absent of the influence of a growing drug and addiction population. So where I sit at the central office and I'm talking about curriculum and I'm talking about increasing the content knowledge of both teachers and students in administration in mathematics and science, when we do school visits, it's important that we know the communities and what students are bringing to the classroom. So I think, and not in terms of a deficit model, but being very real, honest, and providing sort of like what is needed for students to grow. And I don't think that by giving them less rigor, it's gonna help us. It's gonna help them. It is important that we keep the bar high, but we recognize the things that they bring to the classroom. And I'm done.
So just to recap some things from this morning, there was a group of PIs who met and did some brainstorming around some of the challenges for research around rigorous coursework. And a little summary, that group discussed the evolving nature of coursework in STEM high schools and other high schools working to move STEM education forward, and looking to integrate traditional formal coursework and innovative coursework experiences, because students are still entering community college and college underprepared. So novel experiences are happening in STEM education. and schools around apprenticeship and CTE, and external partnerships are being brought to the schools, and we heard some of that from what Bill's discussing. And the other issue, some elaboration on the research challenges, is how do we as researchers think about what rigor means in this new context? It's not just about courses anymore, but about broader experiences, and how do we understand what is truly rigorous? We need to understand what the student outcomes are in light of these experiences. How do we understand things in terms of the complete picture of what rigor can and should look like given all of these things? So now it's your opportunity to discuss, based on our great panel and your own experiences, what are some of the research challenges? How can we better specify what research should be going on around rigorous coursework for the next generation of STEM high schools? So I invite you all to join the conversation. Amy.
Hi, I'm Schwartz from Census University. So I thought these were really challenging and exciting discussions that we're having. And one of the things I think is most challenging as a researcher is to figure out how do we incorporate the outside of school factors that we've heard so much about. We know these matter, and we know neighborhood violence matters. We know what goes on in policing matters, but it's a challenge to think about how we connect this to our research. And one of the challenges is about the difficulty of data systems together to do that. So it sounds like in Washington, D.C., you guys are really making some important strides in that, but how do you connect those? Part of this is an administrative issue. Part of it is a FERPA, HIPAA problem. Part of it is a funding problem. And so this is where I think NSF clearly just make an important contribution. IES will not fund things that are about, that examine how things happen outside of school affect how you do school. So if neighborhood violence means you won't, if it is less likely to go to a STEM school, IES would not fund that study because they are about funding things that happen outside of schools. And it's not within the purview of this fix. So fundamentally, a lot of things that they're talking about are kind of crossing these boundaries. So we're really exciting to think about how do we make this happen? There's the legal, the administrative, the funding challenges. Like that's the agenda.
So I will mention NSF has a program that's looking at these challenges around big data and what that means for research in not just education but across the foundation. But we do have a presence in that, and a lot of the conversations have been about these legal and privacy issues, particularly around children, but then more particularly around children who come from vulnerable populations. So there are a whole lot of, the science is moving a little bit faster than the ethics, and so then there's the sort of step back and figure it out. But yeah, we do have funding programs that let you do, I mean, so we have a whole program about informal STEM education, but then we are interested in these questions of how pieces fit together.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think this is one of the hardest things for us to think about, and that work NSF could sponsor or others could sponsor that really bring together a kind of community-based initiatives that use the data from these different systems. You know, there are two sides of it. There's one side purely for research purposes. We can anonymize, we can anonymize the data and have data sets, and we can, I think, find relationships between some of these variables and education outcomes that might give us ideas about where we need to increase funding or change the way we work with children and young people. But then there's also the very real need to work with the students that we have right now and to help try to prevent coming off the rails and make sure they have all the possible opportunities. And I'm really hoping there will be, as this work goes on, that I know both NSF and IES are worried about how we can make the data useful for both research and improvement, and that a positive push so that we're not just hearing the negative stories about, data got out and data was breached and data is dangerous, but there also are some of these positive stories about communities that have brought together data from different systems and improved lives. I think that will be really important in the next 5 years.
I will give a plug for the U.S. Census Bureau has a program, and they're actually offering some funding, not funding actually, technical assistance. So no funding, but lots of technical assistance to help people bring together administrative data sets. So you have to have your own data with personally identifiable information, but then they will connect your data to American Community Survey data, or even up through and including things like IRS data, so that the privacy issues are on the government side and not on your side to be collecting that kind of information, and then give you back things in ways that are anonymized. So that's an opportunity for people who are trying to look at kind of community level issues at the and how they intersect with STEM education.
So a couple things. I heard that KIP has long days so they keep kids out of trouble. I don't know whether you could look into that. So that's an idea. I don't know whether you've seen the film Brooklyn Castle about a chess team in Brooklyn before school, and in order to be on the chess team, you need to keep your grades up, and they kind of counsel the people. And that Brooklyn school has won chess championships, and the kids do better in school. So, here they are doing something after school, and they're really committed, and the school sends them to these tournaments, regardless of how they do. So anybody who wants to go, so that looks good. And then there's programs like Math Circles, Math Counts. I heard in Math Circles in San Francisco, what they do is the kids don't have transportation, and the parents can't drive them. So what they do is they offer that teachers can drive them and get paid per student that they bring. And so it gives the teachers an incentive to drive the students because they get a little extra money. And then the teachers can interact with other teachers, and they have their own circle so that they get energized about teaching math. And then the kids go because they have the ride there. And so it seems to work out. So you might look, that's another thing to look into. Math Circles, and it's a national organization. And there's two math circles. There's Math Circles for teachers, and there's Math Circle. And it was brought Eastern Europe. Apparently, it's very, very common in Eastern Europe. And it's after school. Oh, and then there's my program. So I have Julia Robinson Math Festival, and it's an after-school program to introduce different sorts of mathematics to kids.
So here and then here.
So my question is, I don't think anybody in here argues that rigorous coursework is important for each and every student. I still have a hard time separating this from the variable of quality of the teacher. We do know that APIB programs are all challenging, fairly rigorous kind of coursework, but the quality of that teacher teaching that tends to make a huge difference on how students do. And so a couple of questions I have is I just can't separate it. A personal example, all three of my children took calculus in high school, and two of them, the older two, had the same teacher who was really passionate about what she did, and I would say Julie was innovative in the way that she taught. And of course they got 5s on the AP and didn't have to take calculus in college. Awesome, right? My youngest took it from a different teacher who didn't have those qualities and taught it in a very traditional manner. Didn't get a very good score, only got a 2 on that test. And then struggled in college with the same content. So I think it comes back to rigor is really important, but the quality of the teacher teaching that is, I think, equally as important. And so what I would really like to see is kind of what Bill Gates Foundation was trying to do when they were trying to identify what are those characteristics. If there are research, they said those teachers that really engage students, those are the ones that are effective, right? And then everything else becomes variables that are hard to track. So I'm interested to hear, especially in the DC schools and in Chicago. I mean, how is the rigor of this, the content matched with that expertise of the teachers? And I'd like to see a whole lot more research showing
I would just say, you know, the most important factor in student achievement and student success is the quality of the teacher. Nothing's more important. Class size, you know, there's nothing more important than who's in front of your kid. That's it. And the better the teacher, the better the results. That's the bottom line. A lot of other factors impact that scenario, but at the end of the day, it is a quality teacher. So, you know, where I'm at, I'm in the capitalist seat. You know, we have a good school, good reputation. Kids want to come, teachers want to come. So, you know, if I have an opening, you know, I've removed teachers who I didn't feel when I first got there 10 years ago. I removed a number of teachers who my litmus test is would I want my kid in that class. And there were some teachers when I got there who I could not say yes, and they're gone. But that's always my litmus test. Problem is when the inequity piece is you know, not all schools have that ability to draw the top teachers, and so that while that's great for me, that's not great for surrounding schools and schools that so again, you got to keep in mind that equity piece, and the bottom line is you got to raise the ability of all teachers from before they're teachers. That, you know, I think that needs to be looked at. You know, how well prepared are some of our best teachers don't have a degree in teaching. You know, I mean that's a fact. You know, I didn't have my degree in teaching. I went, you know, so our ag teachers, very few have. Only a couple have a degree in education. They're coming from ministry. They have a food science degree. They have a, you know, so an equine degree. So they're coming from ministry, but there's nothing more important.
In DC, we have the luxury that we pay teachers very well. So when I graduated, I was making $13,000. I want to say we start our teachers at 65 to 68. Some of our well-experienced teachers make well into six figures. However, the evaluation system is extremely tough. So they are evaluated by someone from the outside that we call a master educator, and then they get 2 additional evaluations from internal administrators. The rubric is a high-level rubric. We have made some modifications to that rubric to include more rigor and more student engagement. So to be a teacher in DCPS with all of the challenges, the expectations are really high. But you still see we have an equity issue. So the number of African American and Latino students who are passing those AP exams are not as high. However, we went from 1,700 students participating in those courses and exams to now over 3,000 in the last year. So we are improving, but I think it is it's going to take us some time.
So one of the things I've been thinking about, and I think it relates to both your issue around both of your schools where your kids are doing some amazing out-of-school work, and you're seeing that they have understandings that aren't being reflected in more formal ways of thinking about how we assess students, is really related in some ways to pedagogies that we might be looking at. So from a research perspective, I think we want to keep looking at pedagogies about multiple representations of understanding. How can we help them make the ties between what they're doing with their hands and on things, or their projects that they're doing, or when they're going overseas, to the formal learning in the classroom. And so there's a curriculum question, I think, that's inherent in that somewhere. That I think there's the beginnings of research that talk about that, but there's lack of ability for people to study it because there's just not that many spaces to study it. So I think a partnership with schools like you who are doing these things and then thinking about, okay, so how do I take this experience that the kids are having in this space and bring it into my math class in a way that now they see, you know what, if I would have had this kind of math understanding while I was doing that, I could do this better, and then having the opportunity to go back and try it again with some deeper level knowledge, etc. That takes an incredible amount of planning and oversight and probably money to make happen. But I think if we could get those answers
from a few really successful spaces, we can begin to understand the principles for which, what makes that successful, and potentially then, hopefully, close some achievement gaps. And I think we see that in pockets and places who sort of figured it out, but all the time in this figured it out is often very much place-based. They like work for their situation only. So I feel like that could be a big research question or a big agenda that is a possibility there.
Sharon?
Yeah.
And Sharon will be the last one. Sorry.
I guess I feel really troubled about the juxtaposition between what Kim had to say about BC public schools, and I've taught science teacher at years and BC for years. And, you know, Bill's situation, which is working out really well in Chicago, but you know, the Chicago public schools at large probably is too different from BC public schools. But congratulations to BC for the progress you have made. I guess what's driving me crazy is that we always go back to the teacher. And you can't argue with them, right? Be a good teacher. But to keep good teachers in schools, the teacher needs to be surrounded by an environment that's good for the adult teacher. And again, I've had a long history of teachers, you know, with good characteristics, going to DC and migrate out. And it's a common thing. So what I'm troubled about is, what's the way out? Is it more theme-based schools that are more mission-centered, where you can collect that sort of coherent, mission-based teaching staff rather than an individual teacher? You've got a whole staff where they're dedicated to supporting one another, or you change the whole system? I mean, I'm just troubled.
Right. And is it some also the new policy that's happening that's causing teachers to have less autonomy in their own classroom about what they can and cannot do? I think there's a question about that too. It goes with like that ability to enjoy teaching.
I think that's one of the things from the inclusive STEM-focused schools, because they do have more flexibility, both in who they hire and who they don't hire, but also the sense of there's a mission that we're in it together that creates this environment for teachers that's very attractive to teachers. And so what's troubling me is, you know, we've seen there are schools that can do this and that then become magnets for good teachers. But how do we get systems that can do it? And that's much harder, you know, whole school systems. And that's really something that seems much harder, but is going to be in the part of revitalizing our schools.
And I think, I mean, with Bill's school, like, I got chills after you were talking about it. It's just absolutely fabulous. But now I'm at the school district level, I'm looking at 110 schools. What I said in the last sort of academic team meeting at the office was that unless we do something dramatically different, we're going to keep getting the same results. So I think it's more than just finding those pockets, because there are pockets. I think we have a lot of pockets. We have got to do something dramatically different for the masses of students, because if not, we're losing larger numbers than we're not. Students are going to grow. Kids are resilient. They're going to learn, they're going to grow to the level in which they need to. I think that's the question. And until we sort of change it around, it's not going to change. Not that I know what changing it around is. I don't know what this dramatic thing that we need to do differently, but we need to do something differently.
So I'll end with a plug. So we do have a program in the Discovery Research Pre-K-12 program that has a track called Implementation and Improvement. And it's really looking at moving beyond kind of the small pockets to how do you implement and improve at scale. And so one of the things that we did last year and continuing into fiscal year 17 was we upped our award size. So now we have 5-year, $5 million awards, because one of the difficulties is this isn't this kind of scale of change at a district level is not something you're going to see in a 3-year project. So we really are encouraging people who are and we're really looking for the kind of researcher practitioner partnerships where researchers and districts or clusters of schools are going to work together on implementation of some improvement strategy. And we're not seeing a lot of proposals and not such great ones when we do see them, but we'd love to see more and we'd love to see better. And so my final plug is that for those people who are really interested in looking at these kind of systemic questions where it's not just isolate, is it the textbook, is it the teacher, is it that this, is it that, but all of the pieces that go together. That's a funding opportunity that we have that's a little different from some of the other kinds of funding opportunities and the kinds of research that we support that are more sort of traditional, smaller scale. So I have been told that we're having a schedule change, so we're not going to have a break. We're going to go straight into the next session so that we can end early. So you'll go right across. My final slide is to say thank you. So thank you all. And so we're going to go straight across, and I'll do a sort of brief report out from this, and you'll hear some final words, but we're going to wrap up a little early. Thank you. Thank you.